That's the ultimate goal, as we come into a more expansion of what's called the Aquarian age, is that it is a time of coming into greater invention, greater awareness, greater unity in terms of how we all work together. And that humanity is really like a teenager right now, throwing a fit. And that it's time for humanity to mature with greater love and greater heart, and to not be so afraid of one another. My name's Catherine Skaggs, and I'm a visionary artist as well as a shamanic practitioner and a spiritual teacher. And I think I'm here today to share some of my stories and my mystical experiences. My spiritual journey began in my 20s, about 40 some odd years ago. I grew up in a very conservative place in the United States and very religious, and it didn't quite fit for me. And as I sought personal healing and to really feel better about myself, I started to come across the metaphysical teachings. And in the process, a couple of years into it, I got involved in a metaphysical school where I learned how to meditate and do some other practices that started to open me up spiritually and intuitively. And as I went along my path, I became a little dismayed about the school. I became a teacher and a director in the school, but it seemed like the further you went up in the school, the more their practices, the way they treated their teachers, didn't seem in alignment with the spiritual teachings. And so I was looking at leaving, but I didn't know where to go because it was my spiritual community. And so I ended up seeing a student of mine who did a past life type regression experience, but she called it a shamanic journey, which is nothing like what I've learned in the last 18 years of doing my shamanic work. And it was there that I had an experience that maybe we'll talk about today, but I had a white light experience as a result of this journey that she did, and it changed my life. And I'm happy to talk about that now, or I can tell more about my story as it's gone on. I went to her house to do the shamanic journey. I had no idea what she's going to do. And we sat and talked for a little bit, and then I went to her spare bedroom and I laid down, and she told me to close my eyes and to visualize a hallway. Which is interesting because for the 4 years I'd been meditating, I'd never thought I could see anything, and it was as clear as me looking around my room or seeing you on the screen. I could see this hallway with doors on it. And she invited me to open one of the doors in my mind. And so I went and I opened this door on the right. And as soon as I did, I saw this beautiful garden. And when I looked around the garden, I saw this little fairy angel about this big. And I had this thought in my mind, I would just love to hug her. And so I shrank in size and I hugged her and I burst into light. And as soon as that happened, there was no awareness of me having a physical body or being in that physical house with my friend who was doing this experience. I was outside of time and space. I was in a very much of the God consciousness or white light experience. And I was in pure bliss and pure omniscient knowing. And at the time, I wondered, I knew that I had questions, and I realized that there were no questions once I got there. There was only love. And so I was there for probably about 5 hours Earth time, and yet there was absolutely no awareness of physical reality or physical Earth time. And then I got pulled back into my experience, into my body, and I looked at my watch and I realized I had to go teach that night, and it had been 5 hours and it seemed like it had been minutes. And so I drove to school that night, and when I could see the trees on the way over to the school, I saw neon auras around everything. And I was like, wow. And so as soon as I got to the school, I don't know how I taught that night because the energy around my students was so big. I was very distracted, and at the end of the night I called my friend who had done this shamanic journey. I said, what did you do to me? And she said, well, I don't know, I just saw it too. And I'm like, I don't know if you saw it, but I had an amazing experience. So for 3 days I saw neon auras, and I easily left my position in the school about 2 weeks later, and I went on to a new journey in my life without any fear, because I knew that no matter what the question is, the wisdom was that there is nothing but love. I would say it was a God experience, yes. I called it God consciousness. It was pure white light. I didn't have a body. I felt like there were two other conscious beings there without any physical substance, but it was pure energy, and that it was all knowing. It was all love. And there really was no conversation. It was more like it was a permeating energy that I just had this knowing of peace and love and bliss, and there was no time. So I know I've seen a lot of people talk about how time is a construct, and that experience tells me that that is absolutely the truth, that this reality here is a construct, and it is a mental construct and projection of our spirits into this learning world we call Earth. And yes, that when we leave here, I'm sure that's exactly where I'll go. I did not die to have this experience. I moved into another level of consciousness, and I seemingly slipped in there. But, some of the teachers I had in my early metaphysical teachings, these mystery schools that I were in, said that you have to earn it. And yet this was something I had never achieved in meditation. And whatever the series of synchronicities were, I moved into a state of consciousness that was complete bliss, and I would connect it to an activation in DMT or the God consciousness that's available to all of us. Really, if we have a challenge or a problem in our lives here, one of the most important things is to get out of our head, to get out of our linear reasoning thinking mind and get to what I consider our hearts, and get to a resonance between our heart and our brain. There's a lot of research on that today. But that this ever-loving presence is what God is, and that it brings harmony, it brings peace, it helps us to stop struggling, it gets us out of our ego and our conscious minds into a place I call the heart. And it's bigger than romantic love. It's bigger than just the mother's love for a child. It is so all-encompassing. It's as if you know that there's never really anything to worry about, that it's always okay, that everything here is finite in this earth reality, and that as a soul we are infinite, that we are truly love ourselves, but that as we come into our earth school, as I call it, the soul's learning opportunity, is that we forget and we get separate from that remembering, that knowing. And so I feel like that was a gift, and part of why I do what I do today is try to help people connect to that energy and to that awareness within themselves through meditations and other practices. Okay, to create our reality, to manifest money or relationships or happiness, it starts within each one of us. It's definitely, many people will talk about it as a vibration. And it's a process of connecting. I like to encourage people to meditate and to learn to connect to their higher selves and to that sense of their connection to what's within them, and that from that they can begin to feel that sensation of oneness or wholeness. Now that sounds like a big deal. It sounds simple, but it's not. To create what you desire, there's a process of really imagining, using your imagination, your visualization, and your thoughts, your attitude to claim that it's already happened. So it's like, instead of thinking that what you desire is out here in the future, there's many teachers now who are realizing, and many people channeling this, and this is what I understand from this so far, is that everything is already vibrating that we want. And it's a matter of aligning how we feel about it, that we already know it's a done deal, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I have to work so hard to get something. To attract it or to magnetize it is to visualize and to feel, sense that what it is like to already have it. And that can be hard for people. Like, if we don't know what a loving relationship is, if we've never had a good one, then it's hard to imagine what it feels like. So there's a lot of trust at times that we have to cultivate into what is a good loving relationship, or what is it like to have resources, money, abundance. And so there's it's a matter of aligning your energy to that, your thoughts to it, your belief system in it, to know that you're worthy of having everything you desire, and that at different times you focus on one thing more than another. So a matter of whatever you focus on expands is a universal law. And so if you're negative about it, if you say, oh, I want this so bad, I will do whatever I need to pursue my desires, and then you say, yeah, but I'm not sure I really believe that's true, then you negate it immediately. So it's a matter of putting your attention on it, being curious. Now, one thing about metaphysics and quantum physics is that they really are the same. In the world of quantum physics, curiosity is what draws things to you. And I'd say the same is true of all the spiritual teachings I've ever come across that I've studied with. So if you want to manifest or create something, become really curious like a kid. Now, I wonder what it's like for me to begin to live in the manner that I want to live, and to choose from a happy place, to have a positive attitude, to cultivate that. It's a matter of cultivating a clear focus in our minds, and then to line our actions up and our choices, and then synchronicity will step in and things will start being magical. Earth is full of duality. Earth is filled with challenges. And if I'm going to look at this first from the soul's perspective, which is how I look at most of life typically, is that souls, before we come into a physical body on earth, is that we will work with our soul, our oversoul, our higher guidance system, and we have a council actually before we choose to incarnate into this reality, from my experience. And that we will pick where we're born in the world, we'll pick the parents and the situation we're born into, whether it's wealthy or whether it's poor or somewhere in between. We'll pick whether it's a peaceful place or whether it's a war-torn place. But we'll set up all these opportunities and challenges, because coming here is about growth and love, from everything I understand. And so when people have challenges, like they don't have a lot of money but they're wonderful people, one of their challenges might be to find love wherever they are, and know that they are not limited by their circumstances, that they might have to learn, if money's important to them, or resources, is that what is the value and what is it that they need to do to expand from where they've been. It might be a challenge to overcome their situation, to know that they're capable of it. So there's many, to have the courage to leave the situation, to find out more of what they're able to do. Or they live with the situation and they still may be able to find happiness without the physical reality being all that comfortable. That there's much value just in living life. So there's many lessons that are opportune in everyone's lives. So from a very spiritual perspective, everything here is to learn from and to grow from, and to discover oneself more as one who's able to create and not be limited from this world. So one goal for many people is freedom. Freedom to not be limited by their circumstances and to still be happy. So there are a lot of people, from monks to people who don't have a lot in third world countries, who are happier than many people who have a lot of money working hard in very successful, seemingly successful countries. Because money is not everything. Oftentimes it is, there's many people with a lot and they're suffering a great deal because they're not happy, that they've sacrificed their happiness for external things. My experience of what I call God is this higher consciousness that is pure love, and that this dimension, I'm going to call Earth a school, as I said earlier, is a dualistic reality, a 3D dual reality. And there is good and bad in this world as we experience. There is fear and there is love in this reality. And that fear, yes, can express as evil. And we have free will as souls, that we are sparks of the divine, that we are all born with divinity within us, that is our heritage. And that my personal belief from my experiences so far and everything I've pursued in this life is that we are here to overcome what I call the ego mind, the lack of connection to God or to divine or to pure consciousness, the unity reality, and that at this point in time we all have choice as to what we're going to pursue on some level. If we are going to pursue our connection to God consciousness, to the Christ Buddha consciousness, to what in some circles is called the I Am Presence, is that there are souls at different levels working on waking up, knowing that they're more than just their body and a singular life, that we are eternal souls, and that we are evolving, and that everyone on this planet's evolving on some level. And so when there's evil or bad things, it's a lack of consciousness. It's a lack of suffering. From what my understanding or my definition is, suffering comes from a separation from our source of light or God consciousness. That when we separate and we live in that state of fear or fright, we may express in very ugly, mean, evil ways. And that at some point that soul will have a reckoning with their actions. I do believe in cause and effect, that is, or karma, that eventually the souls who are living separate from that loving energy, from that light energy I call the divine, will ultimately die, go through the death process in a life review. They will experience everything they ever did to another person in their life review. And then when it's their time to reincarnate, they will come back and they will have to learn from what they've chosen in other time periods. That everything is a learning opportunity. And that if you want to go deeper on this subject, in shamanism or in metaphysics, we'll say you dreaming or creating this reality, meaning that from the spirit world, we're projecting into this material world to have an experience. And that will actually, this is very physical, very real, and it has all its rules like gravity and things like that here. But ultimately, we're also in the world of spirit at the same time. And so when we drop our bodies, when we pass from this world, there's a healing, there's a cleansing, there's a return to the light, and an opportunity to understand what our choices create. So that there's always something, a blessing that comes from it, as difficult as this world is. And I never would want, and cultivating compassion is one of the practices on the path of evolution. In Buddhism, there's much talk about being a bodhisattva, one on the path to become the Buddha. The same thing as I see in Christianity is that the Buddha and the Christ are brothers. They're the same type of evolutionary energies, and that every soul absolutely is on a trajectory at some point in their evolution, in their learning, to become a Buddha or a Christ. And that is part of, on our planet right now, as crazy as it looks, there's much talk about coming into the Kali Yuga, or that we're finishing the Kali Yuga, which is a term in Hinduism that speaks to the end of a big cycle, and that we're going through the darkest times before we come into a golden age. And that during these dark times, if we look outside ourselves, we look at all the ugly and we get caught up in it, we're going to forget that we actually have love within us and have light within us. And so this is part of learning, is that there's many on the planet right now to go through challenges, initiations, to become more loving, to become more light, to become more Buddha-like, to become more Christ-like, that there are many here in this time period to embody these energies to help humanity heal and change and transform from so much division into more unity. That's the ultimate goal as we come into a more expansion of what's called the Aquarian age, is that it is a time of coming into greater invention, greater awareness, greater unity in terms of how we all work together. And that humanity is really like a teenager right now, throwing a fit. And that it's time for humanity to mature with greater love and greater heart, and to not be so afraid of one another. That we need to come together in greater unity instead of fearing one another. That part of this time is to get beyond the fear. There's literally many solar flares coming in and raising the vibration of the planet. It's raising the geomagnetic energies on the planet. The Schumann resonance, these are some of the words that describe the light coming from the sun in big waves of energy that's actually activating consciousness on the planet. Doesn't look like it right now, but there's more and more people that are getting an awareness to act in more love, more compassion. And so we're in a very interesting time. There's been a lot of predictions that in the next 3 to 5 years we're going to have some very big waves of light or expulsions of solar flares that are coming in that will bring mass awakenings on this planet. I'm very excited about it because it's been a lot of work to get here, and it's not over. We've got more to do. But it definitely is about bringing us back to greater understanding and compassion, that we all want the same thing ultimately. We want to be safe. We want to feel loved. We want to have food on our table. We want to know that everything is okay and all is provided for. And so we all need to get on the same page that when we work together, better things happen. So I kind of went off to speak to a big thing of what you said there, but suffering is that place where we are really separate from ourselves and separate from our divinity and separate from each other. And I think now is the time that we're being given choices about how we're really going to act and how we're going to choose. Are we going to choose in love, or are we going to choose by fear? Because fear is what creates war, whether it be within ourselves or with each other. So I choose love. We're actually in it right now, but we're moving into the very first stages of it. And so the age of Aquarius is considered a time of moving into unity consciousness in what's called the Golden Age. And astrologically, I'm not an astrologer, but I do study and follow some very good astrologers. And the energies lining up right now are basically showing us all the darkness. For us to wake up and be in more light, be in more consciousness of the divine and the God consciousness, we have to have a reckoning or a healing, a forgiveness of all the things that we've done as a species, and certain people in particular, like our governments. Anything that's ever been done against another person, that has to come to light so it can be healed. So there's many governments right now, and the financial system, the patriarchy as we've called it, that's all the ugliness is being called out basically of where there's been greed and there's been things that have done that has not been good for all the people. Because as we move into the age of Aquarius, it is the time of we, meaning all the people need to be cared for. What is good for one person is to be good for all people. What is good for all people should be good for any individual. So when we have a hierarchy where there's 1 or 2% of the world have all the money, and there's less and less and less for the middle class or the lower class, that's out of balance and it can't go on. And so that is falling apart. The way that we've known our financial systems, the way that we've known all the big structures organizationally, everything has to come apart to be put back together in a way that better serves all people. And it's scary for people. So as we come into this age of Aquarius, would we have practices that connect us to meditation, to looking within, to looking to love. Those are the things that fortify us to know that it's okay to move forward, to make the changes that we need to, that help all people get out of suffering, and that we work together in a different way that we have not been doing for thousands of years. So the age of Aquarius is about bringing in more light, more unity. There will be a lot of inventions that will be coming in, new ways of being. There's a promise of more technology coming in that will benefit humanity. It's absolutely a time that's something we ought to be celebrating as we move into it, because it's definitely more unity consciousness, where we're going to solve a lot of the problems that we do not understand how to solve right now. So everything that we've done to pollute the earth, everything that we've done to not have good food, we've poisoned our waters, we've poisoned our foods, we've been ignorant in the way that we've treated our backyard, our planet, what feeds us, what cares for our bodies, our air, everything has been polluted. So as we come into this new age, more and more light, consciousness, awareness, and invention will literally be coming in, and it's like, you're much younger than me, there'll be people your age and younger than you that are going to be coming in, completely bringing in inventions that are going to change what others have done for the last 100 years that have caused harm. I have great faith in this. I don't know how people manage without some sort of spiritual awareness or faith, and I have great faith that this is part of what's unfolding in our reality and for our futures. And it helps stabilize us if we can have some sense of why this would be true, to have hope that there's a better day coming, and that to have faith in this, or faith that the divine is always much greater. Love and light, God energy is always greater than darkness, and that I just have faith in that based on my experiences so far. We should have much greater harmony and ease with everything as we move into this new time. We are going through numbers of years of challenges because there's great change at hand. And so one of the other things that we need as we transition into more peace in the future is that we need to have like-minded people who have faith in what is unfolding. I went and led a meditation today in my community. I do a lot of work with different individuals in my community and across the United States to meditate, to teach people how to go into more peaceful places within themselves, to direct their minds to positivity in a way that is creating a new future. And so I work with ascended masters and archangels. And one of the ascended masters is Saint Germain, and he works with light energy that's violet. And with that light energy, we did a meditation today to transmute density, to transmute fear. And everyone in an hour's time left in greater peace, but we also sent it out around the world. And there are many individuals who have dedicated to doing meditations just like this, not only for themselves, but for the benefit of all of humanity. That together, through our consciousness and through our focus, we are the ones creating the change, because we're bringing in more focus on light, more focus on love, more focus on healing. There's been many studies to show how meditation and projecting loving thoughts changes everything. It's quantum physics, it is energetics. And so it's a matter of directing our minds and our hearts to have a positive focus, and a focus on light that is transformative for the best of all, and not just for selfish purposes or to live in fear. Because that is the most rampant thing we have. People are stuck in their phones, they're stuck on the news, they're looking at social media, and your social media is positive. That's the only social media I try to speak to, because there's a lot of social media that is being used to put people in fear. And so I always want to speak up to say, let us move to the place of the heart, let us find unity, let's find conversation where we can move to a higher state of awareness because we do have a lot of help. I'm going to speak also to the aliens, to ETs, is that there are a lot of advanced light beings, a lot of advanced civilizations who are very interested in our progression at this point as a species. You know, I live in Colorado in the United States. I've got a website, and it's basically my name, CatherineSkaggs.com. So if you can see my name on here and spell it, you can find me online. I'm going to have some new online courses coming in the near future.